Well, I wonder who's going to pull the shocks off this year. Yes, hello and welcome to this week's Women's Football Chat, episode 109. My name is Chris Gadsby. I'm here every Thursday at 6 p.m, bringing you the very latest from the third and fourth tiers of women's football here in England. This is the show that is dedicated to the FAWNL, and this weekend it is the first round proper of the Women's FA Cup. All of that to come then with 44, I think from memory, fixtures containing FAWNL sides. So plenty to go through coming up. But before all that, we are going to go through the results as we always do from the past 7 days. Now, hopefully, everything goes to plan today. This is the first episode of the Women's Football Chat with my new laptop. And I think everything's set up properly. I hope everything is working as it should do. But we will find out. If you're watching or listening to this, then everything presumably has gone okay. But if you see me tweeting out that there isn't a show this week, that will be why. But let's start, as we always do then, with the Northern Premier Division. There have been some significant results in that division this week. We are going then to start at the top there. Burnley against West Bromwich Albion. Another victory for the side at the top. Goals in this one for Burnley: Leah Jade Embley in the 51st minute, Alifa Innis-Marie-Paul in the 52nd minute, and Millie Grace Ravening in the 85th. So quick fire double for Burnley there. Francesca Orthodoxou with the only goal for West Bromwich Albion. A draw between Derby County and Halifax, 0-0 at half-time. Both the goals coming in the second half. Rebecca May for Derby in the 50th minute. Olivia Wilson coming off the substitutes bench and scoring for Halifax. So the points shared there. And Liverpool Feds beating Huddersfield by 3-1. Their decent season continues. 2 goals for Alicia Collins in the 11th and the 90th minute, and also one for Paige Cole in the 30th minute for Liverpool Feds. That was after Huddersfield had taken the lead. Kate Mallin in just the 8th minute had put them in front away from home, but that lead only lasted for 3 minutes or so. Newcastle with the convincing 5-0 victory over Stourbridge. 3-0 at half-time, 5-0 it finished. Georgia Gibson in the 17th minute, Charlotte Potts then in the 20th, and Bridget Galloway in the 35th. Made it 3-0 before half-time. Katie Barker in the 59th and Cara Milne-Redhead in the 78th. Rounding off the scoring. Comfortable, really, in the end for Newcastle. Game of the day was at Grange Park between Nottingham Forest and Wolverhampton Wanderers. Excuse me, my cat wants to leave. Well, go on then. There we go. Decided he wants to be with me all morning and started the show, sat on my knee, and now's decided that I'm boring. Nottingham Forest 2, Wolverhampton Wanderers 0 then in what was the big game of the day in the Northern Premier Division. Wolves down to 10 early on. Tammy George with a yellow card in the 15th minute and another one in the 18th minute. So 2 yellow cards 3 minutes apart for her. One that hasn't gone down particularly well with Wolves. The post-match interview was pretty damning on the officials from the Wolves staff, and from what I've seen online as well, and from the footage I've seen, they were very, very hard done by with that sending off. But Holly Jade Manders for Forest in the 28th minute and Loanne Worsley in the 81st minute scored the only goals of the game. So Forest a big 3 points over Wolves in what was, in my opinion, a must-win game for Forest in order to keep themselves in contact in that title race, particularly because they have got Newcastle coming up in a couple of weeks' time. Then no game between Stoke and Fylde. It was postponed. What that means then for the Northern Premier Division table is that Burnley remain top. They are 4 points clear of Newcastle, but Newcastle have 2 games in hand. Wolves are still in third, but they have played 8 and they are 7 points behind Burnley, so kind of 4. The concern for Wolves is going to be they could end up 6 points behind Newcastle. Forest are up to 4th with that victory over Wolves. They're now just a point behind them and they've got a game in hand. The key for Forest there is they are 4 points behind Newcastle. Now, with that game coming up in a couple of weeks, if Forest were to win that game and only be 1 point behind Newcastle, then the race really is back on again. With 2 games in hand over Burnley, they're 8 points behind. They could win both of those 2 games in hand and end up only 2 points behind, and the title really is still all to play for. Liverpool Feds are up a couple of places, and it's Stoke that are the big losers, having not played, and with that midfield pack being so tight, they've dropped several places now, with Derby getting a point, Feds getting 3, Forest getting 3. Stoke, having not played, have dropped a few places, a bit more where we were expecting them to sort of be over the course of the season. They did play a lot of fixtures early on and kind of had that elevated position that we spoke about. The bottom is all still exactly the same. The concern, Fylde now 5 points from safety and they're nearly halfway through the season. Huddersfield 4 points from safety. Same thing applies. You look at Feds and Stourbridge, they're only 1 game away from reaching the halfway point of their season. Now, of course, from the board behind me as well, you can see there, we've got FA Cup this weekend, then there's County Cup, then there's FA Cup again, there's one lot of league fixtures, then there's FA Cup again, then there's County Cup again. It's pretty much cut between now and Christmas, so don't expect these league tables to change too much between now and the Christmas break. Southern Premier Division then, just 3 games to talk about in this one because there was the Ipswich against Cardiff Cup game, which we'll come on to, so that took quite a few games out, and then the teams that they were supposed to be playing, which would have been, from memory, it was Hashtag and Oxford, and then Ipswich didn't play either, and those sides aren't going to play each other again. So we ended up with only 3 games in the Southern Premier Division. Cheltenham and Chatham played out a 0-0 draw. Plymouth Argyle with a 5-1 victory over London Bees, who are really struggling this season. Opening goal just before half-time here, Charlotte Whitmore, 41st minute. Elisara in stoppage time at the end of the first half, making it 2-0 to Plymouth. Then it was Taya Pomfret in the 59th. Sarah got her second in the 63rd and Dandridge in the 80th. London did get 1 through Kayla Potter in the 76th minute. And Portsmouth still keeping up their strong season. They were 3-0 winners at home to MK Dons, opening the scoring in the first minute through Bethany Lumsden. Jasmine Younger in the 12th minute made it 2-0. That was how it was at half time, but they came straight out, started the second half. And Bethany Lumsden, 46th minute, added her second of the game, Portsmouth's third, and that was all she wrote in the Southern Premier Division. What it means, and with this having been Portsmouth's game in hand over Hashtag United, they do now go to the top of the table with 24 points from their 9 games, the same as Hashtag United, but a vastly superior goal difference. Ipswich Town 6 points back, but they have a game in hand. Rugby Borough also 6 points back, but without a game in hand. So starting to see that maybe a couple of teams just tailing off ever so slightly. You do feel it is going to be a mini league between those 4, though. Milton Keynes Dons doing the best that they can. However, Portsmouth and Hashtag are to win the game in hand they've got over MK Dons. It's a 10-point gap, and that's a lot to make up in the second half of the season. And it's pretty much the same in the mid-table because teams didn't play. Portsmouth, they won, as I said. Plymouth Argyle also won, so with their 3 points, they now go above Cardiff City. Cardiff City now the team that everyone's trying to, well, Chatham and London are trying to catch. But with Milton Keynes Dons losing, they stay in the middle. And then with London Bees losing, they stay at the bottom, and a point for Cheltenham and Chatham. Yes, what it does is give Chatham an extra point. They're a bit closer to safety now, but it doesn't actually move Cheltenham or Chatham at all. So not much has changed in the Southern Premier Division. London Bees 5 points away from safety now. Cardiff City do have a game in hand over them and 2 in hand over Chatham because Cardiff missed a couple of games with international breaks so far because Laura O'Sullivan is still in the Wales squad. So that's the situation in the Southern Premier Division. Hashtag finally, and we're nearing the midway point, have been taken off the top spot, but it is only on goal difference, so plenty of time for them to get that back. Right, let's go down into Tier 4 then. Let's start with Division 1 Midlands. Now, goals in this one. Lincoln City against Leafield was postponed, but a very goal-heavy Division 1 Midlands this weekend. Northampton Town beating Leek Town by 7 goals to 3. Kimberly Farrow didn't even open the scoring in the 8 minutes. It was 1-1 after 8 minutes because Katie Mayer had put Leek in front just 2 minutes in. Then Kimberly Farrow equalised on the 8th minute mark, and Northampton then really started to go to town. So Jade Bell in the 12th minute, Alexandra Dix in the 14th minute, then Bell again in the 31st minute, and then Dix again in the 42nd minute, meant it was 5-1 at half time. And into the second half, then the game pretty much sewn up already, although Leek did give it a fairly good go. Chantal Gallagher, 69th minute, made it 5-2. That didn't last very long though, because Bell got her hat-trick just 1 minute later to make it 6-2. Then 2 minutes after that, she made it 7-2 with her 4th of the afternoon, before Manuela Dell in the 75th minute made it 7-3. Peterborough United 3, Boldmere St Michael's 1, 0-0 at half time, so a flurry towards the end here. Jade Formerston with the only goal for Boldmere St Michael's, but Peterborough is coming from Rosie Axton, Jessica Driscoll and Tara Kirk. Big result of the weekend though, Sporting Cowser beating Notts County by 11 goals to 0. Notts County struggling in Tier 4. Larry Walker in the first minute for Sporting Cowser. I think, if my memory serves me correctly, I think that was after like 9 seconds. Then we've got 2 for Laura Smith, 11th and the 62nd minute. 1 for Daisy Wickett in the 15th minute. 1 for Leonie Joyce in the 18th minute. 1 for Megan Cann in the 32nd minute. So at half time it was 5-0. And then we've got 2 for Sky Owen in the 46th and the 72nd minute, 1 for Alexandra Lydiard in the 81st minute, 1 for Olivia Stubbs in the 90th, and Austin Short in the 90+4, 11-0. It's done wonders for Sporting Cowser's goal difference, and Loughborough Lightning continue their strong form at the top with a 3-0 away win at Solihull Moors. Kaylee Hines 25th minute, Lauren Purchase 31st, and Doris Greenwood 64th minute. Again, for the table then, so Loughborough Lightning at the top by a point over Peterborough, but Loughborough also have a game in hand. Sporting Cowser are in third now. They are 6 points back, but they do have a very strong goal difference now after that 11-goal victory over Notts County. The only movements come in the middle. Northampton Town with that victory over Leek are up a couple of places. Boldmere St Michael's and Sutton Coldfield Town both drop a place. And then the bottom is all exactly the same. So Sheffield and Leaford Athletic both 3 points away from safety, but they both have 2 games in hand over Notts County and Leek Town above them, and they both have a superior goal difference to Leek Town and Notts County. So that's going to be a very interesting second half of the season. Right, Division 1 North then. Barnsley 3, Leeds United 0. Goals in this one. It was an own goal actually to start with in the 50th minute before Amy Lee Barringham-Beck in the 72nd minute doubled the advantage for Barnsley. Natalie Watson rounded off the scoring in the 83rd minute. A brace for Ella Rowell is the only difference between Durham Sestra and Doncaster Rovers Bells in the 25th and the 85th minute. Hull City against Chorley was postponed. Middlesbrough 6, FC United of Manchester 0. A hat-trick for Lauren Robson in this one, a brace for Ellen Turnbull and one for Sarah Byrne. So Middlesbrough very comfortable in the end. And Stockport County 2, Chester Street Town 0. Goals in this one, both coming off the substitutes bench. Super sub Kenzie Bentley scoring just 1 minute after coming on in the 59th, and Levi Rathburn in the 79th. So a victory for Stockport County. For the North table then, the movement all in the top half. Middlesbrough up a couple of places. They are still, though, 4 points behind Barnsley. And Barnsley have a game in hand over them. Hull City have a game in hand over Barnsley, and they are 6 back. Leeds have obviously dropped a place after losing to the table toppers. Durham Sestra up a place over Chorley after their victory over Doncaster Rovers Bells, and Chorley didn't play. But again, all is still the same down towards the bottom. 3 teams on 4 points, 2 on 7. And so plenty of opportunity there. But there is now that 4-point gap between York in 8th and Chorley in 7th. And Chorley have a game in hand. They could win that, and then it ends up being a 6-point gap between 8th and 6th. And you're looking then towards 2 of those bottom 5 being the 2 going down into Tier 5 next season. Long way still to go, though, at the moment. Right, let's go through then into the south. We're going to start with South East, where AFC Sudbury were beaten comfortably at home by Queen's Park Rangers. 2 for Grace Stanley, 1 for Ellie Seal and 1 for Amelia Parsons. The goals for Queen's Park Rangers there. And a good away win for AFC Wimbledon at Actonians as well. A hat-trick here for Ashley Hinks. 72nd, 90 plus 4 and 90 plus 6. Actonians has been throwing everything at that game to try and get a point out of it. But 2 very late goals for Hinks really did make the final result seem probably far more comfortable than the game actually was. Cambridge United away winners at Chesham United. A hat-trick for Ruth Fox and 1 for Alicia Stockton-Down. The difference in this one, Chesham's goal coming to Natalia Makowska in the 27th minute. And finally, Norwich City against Ashford Town. Norwich 4-2 winners in this one. 2 for Alice Parker, 1 for Katie Knights and 1 for Natasha Snelling. Ashford Town's goals coming both off the substitutes bench and both very late. Ashley Cheatley in the 87th minute and Millie Constantine in the 91st. Worthing against Cambridge City was postponed. What that means then for the table is there hasn't been a huge amount of movement. Cambridge United are up to 3rd after Worthing didn't play, and Queen's Park Rangers are up to 5th, replacing Ashford Town after Queen's Park Rangers' victory and Ashford Town's defeat. But the bottom is all exactly the same because Cambridge City didn't play and Haywards Heath Town didn't play either. The advantage Haywards Heath Town now have is they've got a game in hand over AFC Sudbury. And although their goal difference is worse, it's not significantly worse like we've seen elsewhere. So Haywards Heath with a victory could get themselves level and maybe only in the relegation zone by a goal or 2, or maybe if it's a big victory then they might be able to get themselves out of the drop zone. But as I said, as we're nearing the halfway point of the season, we do primarily focus on cups in the next few weeks, so don't expect a huge amount of movement. Finally then, for results, let's have a look at Division 1 South West. Only 4 of them because, again, the Cup was in play here. AFC Bournemouth continued their perfect start to the season with a 4-0 victory over Portishead Town. Maisie Smith in the 11th minute, Gemma McGuinness in the 26th, Helen Blezard in the 83rd, and Chloe Gilroy in the 88th. Abingdon United 8, Chelsea 1. Big victory for Abingdon against the side at the bottom. 2 for Leah Francis, 2 for Erin Hartigan, 1 for Libby Gilmore, 1 for Lauren May as well, and an own goal in there. Now, only 2 have been credited to Hartigan here on full time on their Twitter account. 3 have been credited to Erin Hartigan. Chelsea's only goal coming from Phoebe Hamilton in the 59th minute. Exeter City, another side with a perfect start to the season, and they continued that with a 5-2 victory over Keynsham Town. Sarah Stacey in the 12th and the 72nd, Ishbel Zermond in the 35th, Jenna Markham in the 45th, and Bo Jackson in the 45+1. So 4 goals in the first half for Exeter. Keynsham Town's goals in the 32nd and the 86th minute. Now, Keynsham don't have the system on full time. And they don't update their Twitter, and Exeter didn't say who the scorers were either, so don't know. They just scored 2 goals. But the second one in the 86th minute from the penalty spot. And Moneyfields, a 3-3 draw with Swindon Town. A late goal for Swindon getting a point here. Gemma Simmons in the 38th minute and Kirsty Pearce in the 61st and the 79th with the goals for Moneyfields. They were 3-1 up in this game. Annabelle Colston in the 48th minute had got one back for Swindon. So it was 3-1 with just a few minutes to go. Colston then gets her second in the 88th minute and then equalises in the 91st minute. 2 very late goals to Swindon away at Moneyfields mean that the points are shared there. And really between 3rd and 4th it was always going to be a tight game. So Bournemouth still at the top, perfect, 9 out of 9 on 27 points. Exeter City second, a perfect 8 out of 8. 24 points. Their goal difference is a bit lower than Bournemouth, but they do have that game in hand. And then Swindon are 10 points behind Bournemouth with a game in hand. Moneyfields are 11 points behind. So Swindon don't have a game in hand over Bournemouth. Sorry, Moneyfields are 11 points behind Bournemouth and have a game in hand. Abingdon United up to 5th over Keynsham. That's the only movement in Division 1 South West this season. Down towards the bottom, Chelsea on -65 now, still yet to get a point this season. Portishead only in the relegation zone on goal difference. It is feeling in Division 1 South West as though it is already a 2-horse race between Bournemouth and Exeter. And yes, sides such as Swindon and Moneyfields will have something to say about that. It feels as though it is going to come down to those 2 games between Bournemouth and Exeter. And if I remember correctly, the first of those 2 games is scheduled for the 3rd of December, so long as obviously all the cup games go ahead and it doesn't end up being postponed because of a postponed cup game. So it's going to be very interesting in a few weeks to see what happens when those 2 sides come up against each other. Right, that does it for the league results from the past 7 days. What we're now going to have a look at is the leftover games in the plate and the cup. So these are due to other postponements and whatnot. So Haywards Heath Town against Maidenhead United postponed again. And that means that their game is now going to have to be played on the 19th. Now, neither of those sides are in their county cups. So they did have league fixtures scheduled for that day, which will now be postponed because the FA Cup takes precedence over the FAWNL Cup. And obviously they're in FA Cup action this weekend. So that will then be on the 19th is the game between Haywards Heath and Maidenhead. Billericay Town against Southampton Women's. This one was swapped in order to ensure that game goes ahead because the weather down in kind of the Southampton area was not looking good. So they swapped it. They went to Billericay in order to ensure that game got played, and ended up being beaten by 9-0. A hat-trick for Maddie Biggs, and goals for Amber Gaylor, Carisha Itten, Lucy Jones, Olivia Smith, Sawyer Welsh and Jessica King. A convincing victory for the Tier 3 side. And Sutton Coldfield Town against York City, which was the game that got postponed because of Sutton Coldfield Town's FA Cup third qualifying round being postponed and moved. And Sutton Coldfield Town win by 2-1. Late goals everywhere here. Olivia Woolston, 76th minute. Alice Hughes then equalises, 88th minute. And then Ramea Farquharson in the 89th minute puts Sutton back in front. And they win by 2-1. And then in the Cup, goals for Ipswich Town as they go to Wales and win. And a 2-0 victory, both in the second half for Natasha Thomas and Bonnie Horwood. Now the draw has been made for the Cup and the Plate quarter-finals. They are not being played until the end of January, and they are still regionalised, but it's Fylde at home to Newcastle, Halifax at home to Huddersfield, and then in the south, Hashtag against London Bees and Ipswich Town against Portsmouth. What's very interesting is that, so they're all tier 3 sides now. If you look at the Northern Premier Division table, Newcastle are in second, and then you've got Fylde who are bottom, Huddersfield who are second bottom, and Halifax who are fourth bottom. So the teams in the north that have gone deep into the Cup aren't kind of where you would expect them to be in the league table, not compared to last year where you had your Forest, your Wolves and your Burnleys in and around. So that's the situation in the north. The south is much more as you would expect, with the exception of London, in the sense you've got Portsmouth who are first, Hashtag who are second, Ipswich who are third, and then obviously London Bees are 12th and haven't won yet this season in the league. So you would expect, I mean, these are, as I said, on the 28th of January, you would expect Hashtag to be in the semi-finals. Portsmouth and Ipswich is going to be a very good game. You would expect Newcastle to get the better of Fylde, but Halifax against Huddersfield is going to be a very good game as well. And then it goes national in the semi-final stage. So that is all of the results from the past 7 days. What we're now going to do is have a look at fixtures coming up in the next 7 days. As I said, predominantly it is FA Cup day, so I'll run through all of the FA Cup ties for you. But there is one game in Division 1 South East, London Seaward in 8th against AFC Sudbury, who are in 10th, both these sides out of the Cup. And it's a game where London Seaward could leapfrog themselves just one place up to 7th with a victory, but it would mean that they have an 8-point gap to the relegation zone. Sudbury, if they can't get anything from this game, will only be 3 points clear, but they will have played 2 more than Haywards Heath Town and Cambridge City. So very important game for both of those sides. Right then, FA Cup first round day. So these are all of the fixtures, not just the ones involving the FAWNL sides. So this is where Tier 3 sides come in to the competition. So the Northern and Southern Premier Divisions are in the competition at this stage, and they are coming up against all of the qualified sides, plus those obviously from Tier 4 that played in the third qualifying round. So you have a range here from Tier 3 all the way down to Tier 7. Now, this is going to be the case in this round and in the next round. So at the end of this round, we will be left with 56 teams. Then at the end of round 2, which is in a fortnight's time, we'll be left with 28 teams, all from the FAWNL and below. Then in Tier 3, in round 3, which is early December, the championship sides, the 12 championship sides come into the competition. We will have 40 sides left then. That will then be knocked down to 20 at the end of round 3. And then in round 4, the 12 sides from the Super League come in, get us up to 32. And then you have your 16, 8, 4, 2, etc. So The aim for all of these sides at the moment is to get to round 3 and then hope that you avoid, really, or maybe you want a championship side at home, but it's not the huge money spin than it is in the men's game, and then try and get to round 4 and hopefully come up against a Super League side. So fixtures: Blackpool against Spennymoor Town, all Tier 5. Hull City against Halifax, Tier 4 versus Tier 3. Division 1 North against Northern Prem. 7th tier, Wigan Athletic have a home tie against Division 1 North's Chorley. Norton Stockton Ancients against Chester Street Town is an all Division 1 North tie. These are all regionalised, of course. AFC Fylde of the Northern Prem against Durham Cester of Division 1 North. York Railway Institute of Tier 6 take on Stockport County. York City against FC United in Manchester is an all Division 1 North tie. Burnley against Huddersfield Town is an all Northern Premier Division tie. Mancunian Unity against Newcastle United, Tier 6 against Tier 3 there. Gateshead against Alnwick Town, 6 against 5. West Disbury and Chorlton against Leeds United, 5 against 4. Barnsley against Liverpool Feds is Division 1 North against Northern Premier Division. Leeds Modernians, another Tier 7 side. They face Darwin of Tier 5. Camden Court of Tier 5 against Leamington Lions of Tier 6. West Brom of the Northern Premier Division against Lytown of Tier 5. Boldmere St Michael's of Division 1 Midlands take on the Wibberton Wildcats. That's the third and final Tier 7 side still in the competition. Beaumont Park against Leafield Athletic is 6 against 4. Lincoln City of Division 1 Midlands take on Derby County of the Northern Prem. And then in the reverse, Nottingham Forest of the Northern Premier Division take on Sheffield of Tier 4. Leek Town of Tier 4, Solihull Moors against Tier 4. Sporting Council against Crewe Alexandria is 4 against 5. Wolves against Stourbridge, an all Northern Premier Division tie there. And Rotherham United against Worcester City is all Tier 5. So you can see already just from this first page, there will be plenty of non-FAWNL sides in the hat for the second round. So given the new money that's in the FA Cup this season, it could be a very big payday for them. Right, page 2. There's only 2.5 pages of this really. So Sutton Coldfield Town against Chesterfield, Tier 4 against Tier 5. Doncaster Rovers Bells against Rugby Borough. Now Rugby, of course, they're kind of the interesting anomaly because they're slap bang in the middle, they're playing in the south, but they're coming up regionally against teams from the north. So Doncaster Rovers hosting Rugby Borough. Stoke City of the Northern Prem against Dunton and Broughton United of Tier 5. Lincoln United against Loughborough Lightning. Dussindale and Hellersden against Needham Market is a 6 against 5 tie. Norwich City of Division 1 South East against United, second in the Southern Prem. Harpenden Town against Luton Town is an all non-FAWNL tie again. Wroxham of Tier 5 host Peterborough United of Division 1 Midlands. Thetford Town against Enfield Town, no FAWNL involved in that. Real Bedford of Tier 5 hosting Billericay Town, and Northampton Town against Ipswich, Tier 4 against Tier 3 there. Hertford Town against Haringey Borough, Tier 6 against Tier 5. Cambridge United against MK Dons, 4 against 3. Dartford against Abingdon United is 5 against 4. Sutton United against Maidenhead United, again 5 against 4. And then Woodley United of Tier 5 are hosting Oxford United of Tier 3. Saltdean United, also of Tier 5, against AFC Wimbledon of Division 1 South East. Bromley of the 6th tier against AFC Portchester, also of the 6th tier. That is the guaranteed 6th tier side in the second round of the FA Cup. Moneyfields of Tier 4 against Ashford Town of Tier 4. So that's South West against South East. Denham United against Millwall Lionesses, Tier 6 against Tier 5. Chesham United against Ebbsfleet United. Southampton Women's host Brentford from 2 tiers below them. And Haywards Heath Town against Chatham Town. Final page then, Dulwich Hamlet of Tier 5 are hosting London Bees. Fulham of Tier 5 are hosting Portsmouth, so a couple of tough home ties for Tier 5 sides there against Southern Premier Division sides. Sticker of Tier 6 against AFC Stoneham of Tier 6. My apologies, there's 2 Tier 6 sides guaranteed. Bournemouth of Division 1 South West against Bridgewater United of the same division. Bristol Rovers of Tier 5 against Portishead Town from Division 1 South West. Swindon Town against Sherborne Town is 4 against 5. Marine Academy Plymouth against Keynsham Town is 5 against 4. Cardiff City against Cheltenham Town is an all-Southern Premier Division tie. Helston Athletic of Tier 6 against Exeter City of Division 1 South West. And Plymouth Argyle of Tier 3 hosting Ilminster Town of Tier 6. So plenty there of inter-divisional games. A few from of teams are playing other sides in their same league, which is very boring. But that is the FA Cup draw. So those ties are being played this weekend. Hopefully they all get on. And hopefully we see the odd shock or two and plenty of non-FAWNL sides in the hat for the second round. But that is going to about do it for this week's Women's Football Chat. Don't forget, of course, the website www.womensfootballchat.wordpress.com. A new article went up on there yesterday looking at AI in the FAWNL, so do give that a read. But thank you very much for watching and or listening to this week's episode of the Women's Football Chat. Next week we'll be looking at those FA Cup results, plus a very, very short league weekend. Because it is County Cup Day, so there are only a handful of games across the FAWNL. But for your time this week, thank you very much for watching and or listening to this week's episode of the Women's Football Chat, and goodbye.